Good morning, Rick. How you doing?
Well, good morning, Keith. How are you today, my man?
I'm doing great, man. Always good to see you. That smile, the $1 million hair, looking good. Good. How's the weather in Sedona today?
It's really beautiful. It's fall is definitely here. Winter is not too far away. Usually, we start to get freezing temperatures toward the middle and end of November, and December is often our coldest month. So right now, early uh, November, end of October, we're at about 70 during the day, 75 sometimes, and we get down to about 40, 45 at night. It's beautiful, really nice.
45 is a little chilly for me.
You'll need the hand warmers, my man.
Yes, yes, I will. Man, Rick, I thought we do start off today with a podcast on what does being centered or mindful mean to you?
Mm, mm.
So you want to kick that off?
Well, great. Sure. I'm happy to give it a whirl. I think the practice teaches us a number of different things. I think foremost among all is the notion that we always have control over what we can react to and how we react to whatever the stimulus is. So the idea that we're caught up in a very difficult set of issues involving our careers or even our relationship, all of that is manageable. And it's manageable when we look at what we can do in terms of how we react to whatever the stimulus is. And the point of the practice is to distinguish between what happens outside of you and how you interpret that in a way that you still don't upset your peace and your mindfulness. And it begins with a very simple act, but it's very hard, simple to describe, hard to do. And that is putting aside judgment. If you can be in a space where you allow whatever the stimulus is to come in, you can feel the pain of whatever that stimulus might be. But on the other hand, you don't have to suffer because you can simply not have judgment about it. And judgment is things like, this shouldn't be happening. How come the other person got the promotion? Why does this person not appreciate me? That person didn't say thank you. Those are things that are reactions that are judgment reactions. And those kinds of judgment reactions cause us to suffer. If you can let that go and just observe what happens, that's the first step. So I would say mindfulness, which is being present, allowing yourself space to experience whatever you're experiencing. Totally fine to experience negative emotions, anger, fear, anxiety, but just experience it and watch yourself experiencing and then let it go without the usual judgment that typically follows our response, which would be something like, this shouldn't be happening. So that would be my first step, I think, Keith, when we're talking about the practice.
Yeah, Rick, thank you so much. I agree with everything you said. It's the awareness to stay centered and rooted in inner peace while whatever happens around you happens. And when I mean around you, whatever your mind is telling you that, as you mentioned, shouldn't be happening. And it's, I think for me, when I first heard about, being the observer or witnessing the mind, do its thing or start to judge things, I think for me, in the beginning, it was hard for me. I didn't have the capacity or knew that I was separate from what my mind was. I thought they were one and the same. I was so closely identified with it that I didn't know that there was this separation. And what gave me the first choice was something that I heard from Eckhart Tolle and I heard from you was when you hear that talking in the voice, who's hearing the talking? The observer is hearing this conversation go on. And the observer, when it's rooted in consciousness, rooted in inner peace, it doesn't engage with it. It just kind of watches it. It's like the leaves on a tree blowing in the wind. We can drive by a lot of things on the road and see things, and we never get involved with it. But let this thing start piping up about something shouldn't be happening this way, and we get pulled into this performance. This I think Michael Singer calls it melodrama.
Yes.
Next thing you know, we're pulled in and we're reacting to it. One of the things that I think has helped me, and it may help some people if I can kind of describe it from an example that I had. Rick, so you remember when I was learning how to swim, right?
Oh, yes.
I was learning how to swim, and I had all this conversation about being fearful, being afraid. And people say, you know what, I know what it's like to be afraid. And they'll say something like I'm afraid of, public speaking. And perhaps in their mind, they feel like they're going to die. My mind was like, I'm in water. I'm literally could die. Like literally, not, you might survive that public speaking situation, but I could drown here. And so here I am. And I would think about like that the one time we went out to Bartlett Lake and I was swimming and I was fine, Rick. I had like maybe like 8 months of lessons. It was my first open water swim. I'm swimming, at 38, 39 years old. I'm swimming across Bartlett Lake and I realized that I'm ahead of all my friends who are excellent swimmers. I'm like, something's wrong here. And then the mind starts piping up. Next thing you know, I'm in the Bartlett Lake thrashing and like making I'm so animated. I'm like going underwater, coming back up. I'm pounding the water. And all I had to do, man, was quiet myself and just like, this thing you're doing is freaking out. That's not helping the situation at all. And I remember when I got over that same day, I said, you know what? I can't leave on this note. After everybody came and rescued me, I said, I can't leave on this note. And I settled down and everyone said, just be peaceful, just be calm. And so when my mind would came up with this stuff like, oh my God, you're going out a little bit further, I would just observe the thought and I would just like root myself through my breathing and just in and out. Just do these simple steps. Just flutter kick your legs, just look to the side, take a breath, small breath. Don't take this. If it's the last bit of oxygen on the planet, just a little sip of air, fuel my body, make myself a little bit more buoyant, and then continue with the next stroke, exhale in the next stroke. And so when I think about that, when that energy rises up and my mind or an experience happens and it triggers something within me, and that energy rises up that wants to engage and judge a situation, to experience or observe the rising of that energy of what something shouldn't be. And then in the same moment, just wait for it. Don't engage with it and it will pass.
Yeah. And, Keith, I think it's when we talk about the practice, the point that we're trying to get across with practicing is not that you just do it once. It becomes a way of handling problems. Just keep in mind that throughout your whole life is nothing more than one damn thing after the next. And people think that they get to the point where once I get through this divorce, once I get through this speech, once I get through raising my kids, once I get, it's this whole psychology of deferment. And they think that once they get to a certain point, all the problems will stop. It's not true. No matter where you are, you're always going to have these external stimuli that are coming at you that you don't like. So you might as well early develop a strategy for dealing with them. And I call it the gyroscope effect. And what I mean by that is the idea that you have an inner sense of balance, an inner sense of well-being that no one can touch. No circumstance, no person, nothing can touch that. That's between you and your own gyroscope. That's you as the thinker behind your goofy thoughts and the inner peace that you have. Nothing can interrupt that, but you have to cultivate that. And the way you do that is by being mindful. That's the first step. I'd also suggest that, like your swimming story, how many things in our lives are self-imposed? How many obstacles really are created by our own minds telling us things that are wrong? It's a narrative. It's an entire life narrative that we're used to hearing. You're too fat. You're not smart enough. You always blow it. How come you can't do like X does? Those are all inner narratives that have nothing to do with reality. And those things have to be recognized. So I guess part of the issue that I think is tied up with the practice is starting to habituate, starting to become treat as a habit this idea that all of whatever your reaction is yours to own, whether it's good or bad. You have that choice always to react to something in a certain way. And I'm suggesting that good or bad ought not to have any place in it at all. It's got to be a neutral. Yes. It's got to be a neutral detachment. You look at things that come in. Okay, this is here. I'm out of dough for the month, or my house has been foreclosed on, or I didn't get the promotion, whatever it is. Okay, that's the circumstance. Breathe. Don't judge it. Just be with it. Breathe. Just breathe. and then things will start to open up for you. There's a lot more to it than that, but I think that's a good first step, and that's what we're talking about in this show is first steps. One other thing, you mentioned Michael Singer. There's another singer that I've been reading lately that your viewers might like. His name is Peter Singer. I don't think he's any relation to Michael, but Peter is a professor of bioethics at Princeton. He's one of the most influential philosophers, I think, in the US, probably in the last 50 years. And basically, his mission in life is to explore how individuals can improve their own lot and the lot of others using this sort of adaptation, this sort of practice idea. So if you're interested in further reading, in addition to Eckhart Tolle and Michael Singer, I'm going to throw on Peter Singer as well at Princeton.
Awesome, Rick. Thank you so much, man. You hit on so much there, just so many gems. And I totally agree about the self-imposed experiences that we have in life based on our narratives or something that happened, along the way that we kind of embedded. And this is what's true for me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it could be a collective narrative, of a group of people that have this story about their situation. And some people will say, well, it's a true story. Well, it maybe it is, in some ways, but is it the kind of story that is going to influence how you experience peace or suffering in your life? I think is the question you want to ask yourself. And so for me, what I've chosen to do is that whatever comes up for me, like you said, is an opportunity to make my go-to or to develop a habit and to not getting involved with what my mind says about it. My mind is going to come up and say something about it. What a coworker does, you get home, you get home, from a day of work, you've had the weight of the world on your shoulders and your mind, and then you come in and your significant other they've had the day off. So they're in a great mood. The house hasn't been tidied up. The bed hasn't been made. There's dishes in the sink. You're like, what have you been doing all day? That's a choice.
Yeah.
What you could come in and say, it's like, oh man, it's so great to see you. I'm so great. It's wonderful that you had the day off today and that you could recharge and, rejuvenate yourself. But we have a tendency, at least I do, or used to, Keith 1.0, to really just only see things from my perspective. And because I've been reacting all day to everything that has happened and getting involved in the melodramas, oh, my coworker did this, or, my manager didn't do this, or whatever else may be the case, all day, I haven't been practicing being peaceful. I haven't been practicing observing these little things and that come into my space. And like you said, I've been making them right or wrong, good or bad the whole time. Well, that kind of builds up. And so when you get home among your loved ones and you trip over a backpack or, there's sneakers in the entryway when you walk into the house, the first thing you're upset with your kid. And they haven't done anything. They're playing, but you take it out on them because all day you haven't been cultivating that inner peace. So how do you make it a habit? Everything that arises, you let it arise. You don't get involved with it. You don't comment on it or anything like that. Now, do you take action? Oh yeah, you take action if action is required, but the action may simply be not getting involved with whatever this narrative is. And if there's other action that's taken, you will take it from a place that's rooted in you being centered and you being mindful and peaceful. And I argue that you're gonna be much more effective in that space. Just like me swimming, me thrashing around in the water, I was so ineffective. Me being calm and peaceful, accepting the water just the way it is, it was a whole completely different experience. Well, I'm here to talk about it. So it was a complete experience. So Rick, is there anything you want to add before we close this one out?
I love your take on things, and I love the swimming. And for folks who don't know it, when Keith was learning how to swim, he decided that he was going to sign up for a triathlon. And instead of signing up for the easiest triathlon possible, which is a sprint triathlon, no, he signs up, first triathlon, just learned how to swim, for an Olympic triathlon. So we did the Olympic triathlon, Keith and I and some others in Malibu. And I don't think Keith was quite ready for it, but it was a mile. Now I'm going to say that again. It was a mile in the ocean, swim in a mile. Now, when we swam that day, the water was 58 degrees. We had wetsuits on and the chop was about three 3-foot swells. And we finished, but I just don't, I've never been with somebody who had more gusto, more feel for life, and more willingness to put himself out there and confront rejection and loss and risk than Keith Jones. So it's a joy to be in your presence, brother. And I marvel at that. I tell that story all the time, but my God, a mile in the ocean for a guy who just learned how to swim and he pulls it off.
Thanks, Rick. All I remember on that swim, man, I remember a lot. Grateful for everyone who helped me along the way with getting there. But on that day that we got into the water, I remember looking out into the water and seeing all of these people on kayak, on surfboards and kayaks, and they were the lifeguards. So I was like, I had gratitude every time, and they were spaced out through the mile swim. And every time I would swim, and I would get to one, everybody else is passing them and trying to make time. I would stop and express gratitude. Man, thank you so much for being here. Oh, I'm so glad you took the day off to be here for me. I'm like, I was so grateful. And so I guess it's the metaphor. What I replaced any kind of fear with on that day was gratitude. I was so grateful, man. Every step of the way, I just saw a new friend, a new friend. So Rick, thanks so much, man. I love you.
I love you. Adios, Keith.
Adios.